Hey everybody. Oh, almost forgot. I am back with another movie spoiler review. And, excuse me. Continuing on with the Halloween theme month, I am covering the classic 1998 movie Blade, starring Wesley Snipes. And right after this, I'll be covering Blade 2. Then later on in the week, I'll cover Blade Trinity and the Marvel anime Blade TV series. So look forward to that. Very Blade heavy centered week. But anyway, if you haven't already, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share this with your friends. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can follow me on links in the description below. And yeah, man, this movie directed by David S. Goyer. Oh my god, all props due to the director Wesley Snipes for really, because this movie really set things in motion. Not just for superheroes, at least it was not just the Marvel superhero movies in general, but also set the stage for what will be the MCU moving forward. Why? Because it just superhero movies were so few far between. Sure, we had Batman '89 and Batman Returns, and the Christopher Reeve Superman films, but you got a few highs and lows, but it really really set the stage for people to try, whether it failed or was a success, in giving superhero movies a chance, and really stretch, have a director and writer stretch their creative legs when it comes to adapting a character. Like I said, there's been a few misses along the way, but we got a lot of highs along the way as too. As a matter of fact, given recent events, it's been a lot of the nostalgia has set in at this point. So according to according to rumors that Deadpool 3, playing on the whole theme of Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe story, Elseworld story. It's like Deadpool kills the Fox Marvel Universe, and Jennifer Garner's Elektra and Ben Affleck Daredevil is supposed to be rumored to make short appearances in the movie. And well, I say if you want to watch the Daredevil movie, watch the director's cut. It's a whole lot better. And the Elektra movie wasn't very good, but I argue that Jennifer Garner did make that. She was she's always been like the it girl. She's a great actress, but she was really like the it girl around that time. And of course, her and Ben Affleck was together at that time. Those were like the it couple. I'm not sure they was together already or together after this film, but either way, they was big deals. It's the first movie I remember of Colin Farrell really really got into my zeitgeist of my mind, because he was a fun Bullseye. And of course, in the TV show, he was like Bullseye was played a lot more serious. But now it's like some fervor for characters that we haven't seen in like almost 20 years. That because around this time, studios really unless it was like a guaranteed hit like Spider-Man or X-Men that has fantastic shows back in the day, whereas people are like, yeah, we can get behind this. But something like Elektra, Daredevil to an extent, there wasn't that much faith behind certain projects that wasn't like tried and true of a big fan base. If it wasn't like a huge fan base, it's like oh no, it might not succeed kind of attitude. And so the support you can argue it probably wasn't all that there. But now it's like, you know, ever since the MCU, everybody's like, okay, we'll try. You know, nothing's all that dumb looking. Okay, we can bring in like something like Doctor Strange and have goofy magic fights with musical notes and stuff like that. And nothing's too weird anymore. Back then, there was some trial and error, and like I said, you know, people behind the writers' room and directors, blah 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 blah. You know, you can say there wasn't that many of the fan base. It's kind of like with like the first Mortal Kombat movie. They rarely lean into the gore aspect of the game to adapt it into a proper movie, because it was people in my generation that had that appreciation while we was growing up during this era. We were as kids and we had an appreciation for this kind of content. But now that people we are older and the people in my generation are in these kind of writers' room, we can, you know, give faithful adaptations 7 or 8 times out of the 10. But I'm going off on a tangent. Like, I'll say that all that to say that Blade really was the, you know, the trailblazer. But anyway, like I said, it stars Wesley Snipes as Eric Brooks, aka Blade, a half human, half vampire called the Daywalker. He you know, who made it his mission to destroy all vampires. We got Stephen Dorff as Deacon Frost, Blade's primarily arch enemy. Chris Christopherson as Abraham Whistler, you know, Blade's mentor and father figure. Boucher Wright as Dr. Karen Jensen. Donal Logue as Quinn. Udo Kier as Ginto Dragonetti, a vampire elder. And Quinn is Deacon Frost's right-hand man. We got Sanaa Lathan as Blade's mother, Vanessa Brooks. So, if you haven't read much Blade comics, Blade got his powers because when his mother was pregnant with him, she was attacked by, well, in the comics, and they kind of adapted this properly into the film as well, Deacon Frost attacked, fed on her, but she survived long enough to be, you know, rushed to a hospital, give birth to Blade. But because while she was still pregnant, which I'm surprised nobody put 2 and 2 together at a certain point and try to make more Daywalkers under vampires' influence by, you know, gathering a bunch of pregnant. Matter of fact, if I was writing like a Blade comic, that's a kind of a story I could, like, I was kind of pissed this in my Blade comic book review. Well, like, you know, vampires making some anti-Blade, you know, figure for themselves to go after Blade like a freaking Terminator. But another story could easily be that, okay, you know, a vampire elder studied Blade and realized, okay, how he came to be. So we're going to make our own Blades, but under our control, so we can have like a, you know, be like the biggest vampire clan in the city. So we're going to gather 5 group of pregnant ladies, you know, I'll, you know, bite them, and then once they, you know, you know, birth those babies will be half human, half vampire automatically, and I'll raise them myself as my elite squad of vampire Daywalker warriors to combat Blade or something like that. Don't know why nobody put 2 and 2 together and do something like that. That seems, it should be fairly obvious about how Blade origins go. Anyway, so because of this, he grows up to be a Daywalker. He eventually meets up with Whistler, who trained him, because he was a vampire hunter himself, who trained Blade in the arts of taking out vampires, and he became like a very infamous character among the vampire underworld. And it says in iconic lines of this film. Me and a friend of mine, we watched Blade, together like a lot of times. Me and her, like, we often quote this movie. She's not like an avid, like, superhero movie watcher. There's only like a few ones she actually seen is the Black Panther movie and Blade and maybe like one other thing maybe, but she quotes Blade probably a lot because she loves this freaking movie. And of course she watched I think she watched all the Blade films. I mean, I definitely know she watched the first 2 films, but I don't recall she ever watched the 3rd. But anyway, it's like some motherfuckers always ice skate uphill. Don't know what the hell that means, but it's just cool as hell is the way he, Wesley Snipes delivered that line. So it makes it just epic. Makes no sense, but it's cool. Because, Wesley Snipes always cool. He's like this, just oozes cool. And I kind of wish he was like the replacement Black Panther, in my opinion, because not only gonna fight, but he's still relatively young. But you can't carry like a good 10 years of Black Panther, And of course, Mahershala Ali is gonna be the MCU's Blade moving forward, even though he was already Cottonmouth, and it's like, as good as an actor he is, they could have gone with somebody else, probably a lesser known figure, so that way we can just focus on Blade and not like a A-list actor. But you can argue that, oh well, Wesley Snipes is an A-list actor and he still made that. That's an anomaly, but because he filled that role perfectly. Anyway, so we open the movie, which we should always do with these Blade films, or even like a Punisher film, because it's not that too dissimilar to like how Punisher operates when dealing with crime. It opens with him going after a particular vampire clan and just lay waste to it. You see this guy getting picked up by this girl, thinking they're going to this kind of rave. Then, of course, this, backdoor nightclub situation where DJ's playing and then this sprinklers go off and his blood's dripping everywhere, and most of the patrons there are all vampires. And then of course Blade shows up, not a drop of blood on him from the sprinklers, and he just like takes all these fools out and just like without breaking a sweat. And of course he do the iconic like fist pump, man, and he doesn't smell often, but when he does, it's always like it just adds like the necessary levity in certain things. And it's kind of like I don't want to say bleak, but it's like this dark tone of a film. When like those kind of like those hilarious moments happens, it really kind of breaks the tension. It's really good, and he nails Quinn to the wall, and it's like, I'm getting tired chopping you up. Think I'll try fire for a change. And it's like, and some people point out, and I kind of agree, that it's like every time he bumps into this Quinn guy, he doesn't like permanently just kill this dude. Now I understand if he was like using him to lead him to Frost or some other big vampire elder to take out, but no, it seems like he's just effing around, in my opinion. But he follows the EMTs who drag Quinn's charred remains to the hospital, where we meet Dr. Jensen, who just so happens, given the fact that the theme of this film is a hematologist. How ironic, or coincidental, I should say. And she gets attacked. She and her co-worker / ex-boyfriend get attacked by Quinn. As he jumps up, he takes a bite out of the guy first, and he's in the bleeding out on the floor, and he bites her, which I don't know why that, you know, he bleeding out completely, and she's just getting a simple bite. But Blade shows up, and it's like, you know, I came back to finish you off. Why didn't you just finish him off right then and there? You had the opportunity. But Quinn makes his escape, and there's another funny one when like the security shows up and start taking shots at Blade, and it's like, motherfucker, you lost your damn mind. Like, that always gets me. It's like he just breaks away from that stoicism for that brief moment. And it's really good. Oh my god, it was really good. But before he, you know, tries to walk away, he sees like, you know, Karen just, you know, on the floor hurt, and he, you know, has like a flashback of his mom. And now I'm thinking about it, it's like the images they're showing that she's like in the hospital, like reaching out, and it's like, how would you know that you was a baby? That only would make sense if you're at least old enough to be cognizant of her being like bit again, because she supposedly had died on operating table while delivering him. But yeah, but he getting flashbacks about his mom, and so she reminded him of her. So he carries her out and returns to the HQ for Whistler to patch her up, hoping that they can like nullify the vampire bite, you know, virus before it completely takes hold. It's like borderline apparently. So they inject her with some garlic, trying to like neutralize it quickly. Seemingly got it, but you know, it turns out like, oh, it just pretty much stalled for a while, but she might still turn. But we never really got a resolution of that, or even a line in the second movie involving that possibility. We was left to an assumption that she turned or she got better. I don't know. I kind of wish we had that kind of, you know, resolution to that. It's something that has always bugged me over the years with this movie, that part. So Blade and Whistler explained to her that she got involved in the part of the world that, you know, they try to keep, you know, a low profile about for normal people, where it's like they're waging a war against vampire kind. And now that she's been marked, she's probably best to get out of town. But Whistler hands her a mace filled with like garlic and silver nitrate in case she possibly get attacked by a vampire again. But if she feels a turn, he suggested to get a gun, you know, put it to her head and deal with it. So, because the alternative she will not like, because, you know, when you turn to a vampire, you're gonna do what you naturally gonna feel like gonna do. Then we are introduced to Deacon Frost, played by Stephen Dorff, and he is a vampire who was turned, but in the comics he's like, well, I'm not sure he was like a pure blood, but he's, you know, in the comics one of the most powerful vampires, and not like Dracula or anything like that, but he's like pretty, you know, powerful in his own right and leading a clan. And I think, I'm pretty sure he's dead in the comics, but he was, you know, one of Blade's more lethal adversaries for a long time. But here he's dealing with like the Vampire Council, who are 13 members who are born pureblood vampires, and they want to keep the status quo of maintaining a balance and not trying to, because they mad at Deacon, who keeps trying to incite a war between humans and vampires, while they're trying to like maintain a balance of keeping like things under wraps. You don't want to incite the humans, because if they figure out what we are and what's going on under the surface, they're gonna like there not only be a war, but there's gonna be some systematic destruction on our side of things, which we live in like a lap of luxury where everything's we don't want to upset the apple cart, and that's what Deacon's trying to do. So he ain't trying to hear none of they mess, because they're like self-righteous stick in the muds, who really looks down on not pure blood vampires like him. As Karen's going back to her house, which, by the way, if you notice, it's like paper all throughout this film seems to be flying all over the streets. I'm not sure why it's just like just so much paper all over everywhere, just flying in these streets. It's like, I don't know, it's like somebody left like a truck full of newspapers open, and they're just starting flying out everywhere. But she showing up home and she's starting to notice things, because like once you know certain things, it's hard for you to unsee it sometimes, and that's what we're looking at here. Because she noticed two people about to get in the elevator with her to her own apartment building, and they notice like these little glyph things, and those are signs of well, I'm not sure if it's like everybody in a particular clan or just familiars, but familiars are humans who look after the needs of a particular vampire group, that in hopes of later on turning into vampires themselves. Because it's pretty much kneeling to, taking a kneel to surrendering, rather than like the other option is turn to food. So Blade usually takes them out too, because like they honestly know better. If you want to be like them, you're gonna share the same fate. That's in Blade's mind's eye. Very rarely he like lets a familiar go. So she noticed these glyphs on the back of these two people's necks, and so she rushed into her apartment, where somehow a police officer is already there, and it turns out he's a familiar too, and he's about to take her out, but Blade just shows up and used her as bait to lure somebody like this guy out. He beats the hell out of this dude, and they end up and he's just so nonchalant about the fact that she points out, so you just use me as bait, and he's like, get over it. I was like, this dude, wow. So they go to the truck of his squad car. Notice it's like a cooler full of blood bags from a particular hospital. So Blade's questioning him, and he's beating him up in broad daylight, streets filled with people, and nobody's saying nothing. I was like, you don't see this guy in a trench coat beating up a police officer, and you're not, nobody's gonna like say something, or it's like, what's going on, or anything. You just like, it happens, like, and it's like, police generally have their issues, but it's like not something you see every day. Probably will at least question like what the heck is going on, that just how this happened. Or some passerby secretly call the cops like, hey, some dudes beat up a police officer and you might want to send somebody, kind of thing. Anyway, he ended up slipping away because Karen's like trying to avoid him publicly executing a person on the street. And another awesome line delivery is always memorable It's like, you better wake up. The world you know is just sugar-coated topping. It's another world. And you better learn to pull the trigger. I was like, God, and it's like, everything he says is always delivered in such like a badass way. And it's like, just like, what is this name? Just awesome, man. I'm in awe of his acting skills, really. So they end up following this dude, and this stupid butt end up leading them directly to one of Deacon Frost's operations, because he's, belongs to Deacon Frost according to the hieroglyphs. That's his insignia. So this leads Blade into an underground bunker where this like obese vampire named Pearl, who spilled the beans about this prophecy that Deacon Frost is trying to unearth, basically about Lumagra, this vampire god that Frost could unleash and be host of in order to be like the ultimate vampire, because he wants the vampire to rule and take that rightful place as top of the food chain, and not make, as in his words, make back alley deals to their food. So they end up going to this other location where it shows like this vampire archives, and they end up getting ambushed by Quinn and a couple of vampire goons, including one small, seemingly teenage girl who, put up like a decent fight against Blade until Blade just like, backhands her, knocks her out. She never shows up again. I don't know what happened to her. She seems like she can actually hold her own. But thanks to Whistler, who never is too far away from Blade in case he ever needs backup, isn't really always the case. I had to figure that he, at some point along the line, he called him up. I don't know. He just seems like it's very rare that Whistler has to show up to back up Blade. But he shows up, causes a ruckus, which allows them to escape. But Karen then realized that Blade is one of them, and Whistler explains his origins, that he has all the strengths of a vampire, none of their weaknesses except one. He still needs blood to feed on in order to sustain himself. So he created this serum that blocks the thirst, essentially, or at least it's like a blood supplement. So he can be able, because it'll last him for a good 24 hours, maybe 2 days max, before he starts feeling the effects of the hunger again, and he needs to take another hit. But the concern of Whistler is that he's been taking these things for so long, he eventually built up an immunity to it, and eventually they're not going to work at all. So that's a concern of both of theirs. But since luckily they have a hematologist on deck, so she is looking into finding like a cure to the vampire disease, which I'm gonna lay it out right here and now is like, unsuccessful. Which at best she ends up turning the possible cure into just explosive devices, for once injected and mixed with vampire bloodstream, causes them to explode. But she's ultimately charged into just making a better serum for him to use, so that won't ever be a problem moving forward for him. So what happens next? Blade, as picking up some while picking up some tools, he ends up seeing Frost in the middle of the daylight, because after he kills the leader of the vampire elders, because he has these like this sun blocker makeup to last at least an hour, so he can be in the sunlight. So he holds this little girl hostage while he's trying to like broker some kind of peace and wants Blade to work with them. But Blade's not, buying it. He ain't trying to listen. So in order, Deacon just throws the girl into this like a little hot dog stand looking thing, and lands her right in the freaking street. Like, given the fact that this dude got super strength, I'm surprised this kid at least ain't paralyzed from that impact. But also I want to make a point. You think like the whole bullet time thing only happened in the Matrix film? Blade did it first. You look it up, because it wasn't until like a year later, when the first Matrix movie comes out, this movie actually did the whole bullet time thing first. I think the Matrix films kind of improved on it, but Blade did it first. So once again, after Blade saves the little girl from being hit by a car and tells her to go home, nobody stopped for a moment to check on this little girl. Like I called the ambulance, something. It's like they're just going about their day, and it's like a little girl just got thrown in a freaking street, hit right through like a apple cart or whatever, and nobody stopped. They sure did run when Blade tried to fire at Deacon, but that's still like, it should cause some kind of commotion. What is up with that? But anyway, Deacon somehow made it all the way to Blade's hideout that they figured out where he was holed up at. Kidnaps Karen, infects Whistler, but not before beating him up and leaving him for Blade. Blade, seeing Whistler in that state, knows what he have to do, but can't bring himself to do it because he looks at Whistler like a father. So Whistler takes his gun, tells Blade to walk away, and you hear the little faint sound of a whimper. Rewatching this, I never heard that before, but you hear a faint sound of Whistler saying "bitch," and it's like, I never heard that. It's like, I've watched this tons of times over the years since I was young. Never heard that faint sound. I was like, wow. Like, go back to that moment right before Blade walks away and just listen very closely. You'll hear him like say like "bitch." It's just just a crotchety old man. It's like, like, you don't got the balls to do it, then I'll do it. And then you hear a gun go off in the distance. So after Blade suits up, goes to Deacon's hideout, just trying to find Karen and rescue her. He gets ambushed after being like caught off guard by the fact that he sees his mom alive, but not only that, a vampire. And so Deacon and his cronies take Blade to this other area for this ritual site to complete the ritual to summon La Magra, he lines up all the, pure blood elders, got Blade at the tippy top of this structure, put him in this little mechanism that bleeds him out, and the blood drains and drips onto the foreheads of these elders. So with the ritual complete, La Magra, they get all destroyed and have these little, winged skeletons pop out of his mouth. The effects in this movie, at a point right here and now, it's dated, but it isn't too much of a problem where it takes you out of it. It seems like it all like lines up in your mind. It wasn't until you see in like Blade 2 where like some of the effects was, it's like somehow still abysmal. Even for back then, it's so abysmal in places. Where in this, you're a little more forgiving somehow. But so Deacon becomes the new host for La Magra, becomes a lot faster, a lot stronger, and Karen has Blade feed off of her in order to replenish his power. He has to take out his own mom, but they end up taking out, Deacon's little hench buddies. Awesome fight scenes all together with Wesley Snipes, but then down to him and Deacon, and he's overwhelmed at first by Deacon's unnatural power. But then the supposed serum turns out to be like Karen's little new formula. He used it to throw at Deacon, injects him with all this like explosive serum, and that's how he just takes him out altogether and turn him into tomato soup. And of course he delivers the iconic line, "Some motherfuckers always trying to ice skate uphill." Doesn't make a lick of sense, but it's awesome. But then the movie ends not only with the whole Karen going to make a better serum for him, but as a surprise effect, this is one of those rare occasions in film, not just superhero films, but in film in general, where the main character with a female partner, there's no romantic type of thing whatsoever. There's no, feeling. Nobody catches feelings. There's no surprise kiss. I don't know freaking where. They're just like, no, she's a colleague. She helped me along this thing. That is it. To this day, I still applaud. Like, wow, any other director would have had these two like hook up or just make out on the sunrise, just for no inexplicable reason. But they just like, no, men and women could just be colleagues and no romantic interest whatsoever. But then the movie ends with Blade going to Moscow and taking out some vampires there. Awesome film, still holds up. I freaking love the Blade films, except for the third one, but we'll get to that later in the week. But let me know in the comments below what you think of the Blade film. This is, like I said, it's iconic still to this day. And part of me still wishes Wesley Snipes can be Blade for the MCU, because like there's certain people that make a particular character and it's hard to fill those shoes. It's like same way with like Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. And it's like you really make that character work for him. Same thing with Chris Evans' Captain America, or and it's like Chadwick Boseman is Black Panther. It's like some people just do such a great job. It's hard to fill those shoes. It's not to say it can't be possible, but it's just like it's a hill that's tough to ice skate up on. But anyway, I will see you guys in a little bit where I'll do my review for Blade 2. So, like I said, leave a comment below. Let me know what you think of the film or the trilogy as a whole. Who's your favorite character? the pros and cons, all that stuff. Follow me in the links in the description below, and I will see you all soon. Peace.